Hey, it's me, Glue, the guy who makes all those videos about that video game. Well, off the title alone, I'm sure you guys can guess what this is about, huh? Me and this weapon have a sort of history, if you want to call it that. Yeah, so to avoid the mass confusion and my public execution, we're going to be taking an objective look on the green Railcannon, aka the screwdriver. The screwdriver does 3 damage on impact. Afterwards, it does 7.25 damage over the span of 8 seconds. Which, if you don't have a calculator, that's 0.90625 damage per second. DPS, as the kids call it. You want maximum uptime. This makes it especially useful against certain enemies, such as the Hideous Mass, as when hit on the weak spots, it takes over 30 damage, which is actually half of its 60 HP Cybergrind health pool. That's not all, it's also got its ups and downs. For example, it actually increases the blood pickup range, and to complement that, it gives you a lot of blood. Like, a lot of blood. Which is actually really quite nice. A lesser known fact is that it actually stops the Mindflayer from teleporting. Teleporting, alright? Not attacking. Be sure to understand the difference, it's, kind of important. Now, let's still talk about the bad stuff, right? The fall off range. I mean, this thing is so pathetic. It can't even make it out a meter or two without hitting the ground. Thankfully, if you do hit them, you'll be rewarded generously, as with the latest patch, you can actually parry the screwdriver in quotes, which fires it off in a straight line with no fall off, as well as resetting the cooldown, ultimately letting you go infinite, at least in theory, since you will always need 2 enemies. Additionally, to circumvent the terrible range, you can actually stick the drill onto the corpses of malicious faces to allow for easier parries. Yeah, so, sorry Maurice, but you know how it is, man. You know how it is. Now that we have gone over the stats and some quirks, how well does it fare against the other Railcannons, objectively? Well, I'm glad to say that I'm still right. This shit is objectively ass. And let's go over it, objectively, of course. First off, the damage. Yes, the green Railcannon does more damage than both of the Railcannons, at least on paper. The blue Railcannon can not only pierce, but opens up the opportunity to Railcoin. And of course, with the red Railcannon being an AoE, it does more damage as long as you, shoot at 2 or more enemies. Not to mention, if you do shoot at only 1 enemy, there is the potential for Afterburn, which adds more damage, as well as malicious nuking, and so forth. Also, the green Railcannon's dot is actually quite pitiful if you look into it. I mean, the Knuckle Duster does more DPS.
Oh, but Glue, well, it's great against the Hideous Mass, like you said.
You know what else is great against the Hideous Mass? You could just do this. Alright, we're moving on. Next is the blood this weapon gives you. You know what else gives you blood? Shooting at enemies. Also, it doesn't matter since you are supposed to be getting hit anyways, at least, of course. Objectively speaking, of course. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky and is going to require a sort of roundabout point of view. The Mindflayer. Yes, being able to stop the Mindflayer from teleporting is amazing. However, I think we can all agree killing it would be even better, right? Which is why I'm going to show you how to more consistently kill the Mindflayer using a single blue Railcannon charge. To do this, we must first understand the mind of a Mindflayer, the AI. After lots and lots of thorough testing, I have found that the Mindflayer has a sort of damage cap at about 7 damage. Now, what do I mean by this? Similar to how in some games, if you deal too much damage to a boss too quickly, they go invincible. It's sorta like that. After dealing 7 damage, the Mindflayer will teleport unless it is already attacking, in which case it will teleport after it is done attacking. It is important to note that the 7 damage cap does not also have to be in a single burst, rather it builds up over time, sort of like a meter. Does your head hurt? Because it's going to hurt even more. 2 more things to note. When first spawned in, if they are not in melee range, the Mindflayer will always, I repeat, always, use the ball move instead of the beam. Secondly, when the Mindflayer teleports, it will always be somewhat near you. Now, with all of that in mind, here's how it goes. When the Mindflayer spawns, you hit them with the blue Railcannon, dealing 8 damage, triggering them to teleport. They teleport somewhat close to you and start using the ball move. Using an explosive of your choice, Whiplash over, and instantly kill them. In case you don't know how the instant kill works on Mindflayers, there are plenty of videos that can and will explain better than I ever could. Check them out, would ya? Anyways, obviously, you could just use the instant kill technique, but this method allows you to kill Mindflayers more and more consistently with practice. But it's important to note that the instant kill technique isn't the most consistent in general. This method is just to show a more effective alternative use of your railgun charge against specifically Mindflayers. And I think this is the sort of quintessential problem with the green Railcannon. It's a mediocre dot that gives you lots of heals. That healing, of course, acting as a sort of pseudo damage reduction, a pretty good one at that. However, what some people forget is that the best form of damage reduction is damage. Why try to block some dude's attack when you can just fucking obliterate them? Especially in a game that punishes you for repeatedly getting hit. Would you rather take the consistent, solid damage, or take a fraction of that damage to be spread out over a longer period of time in exchange for healing, which may or may not be able to benefit you? That's why the best thing you can do is always use it. I mean, like, if it's up all the time, you should always use it. I mean, I don't even give a shit if it's, like, kind of mid and kind of ass. Listen, it looks cool, it sounds cool, and it gives you a lot of blood, huh? I mean, like, what's there not to love, right? This thing's a piece of shit, don't fucking use it. I mean, no, you should use, listen, hey, you made it, you know, all the way here. Appreciate it. Don't really have anything funny, you know, no funny impressions like last time. Sorry, I had to cut the budget back for all the editing chops and whatnot. But hey, I got this funny clip, right? A little funny clip. Maybe that can satiate it. Thanks again.
Ooh.